if the goal is to speedrun counting, like speedrunning counts on like the things you can skip out on, is that sort of, do you cut out the breaths in between? Do you think you could find some numbers that you can skip? You know, like,
I feel like you can
syllables.
The thing I would start skipping was the fidelity of the tens column. So we're not saying 20, we're saying 21, 22, 23. With 20, 50. Yeah, that's it. So you can skip time when you go through those big chunks of tens.
I think you can probably find one or two numbers that'll be like, yeah, we don't need that number anymore. That number's not useful.
Honestly, you can skip 69. As much as it hurts, it's just going to distract you. It's going to slow you down. Skip it.
If you say 69, you have to then say nice.
Yeah, it's going to slow you down. So just skip to 70. Take the penalty point for skipping a word, but you'll still have the fast time. And
if you speed up really quickly, you'll actually find a way to clip through the 30s. So if you manage to get through like the 20s, like lightning fast, there's like this weird glitch that happens, and it will just
you just go straight to 40. Yeah. What you got to avoid is accidentally adding a hundreds column, because that's going to really slow you down. Because then you're going to have to start going backwards.
Yes, you need
to be. They never said you couldn't start at 101. They just said you had to start at 1. Start at 101, reverse into it, 100, like half a second, no trouble.
That's actually the strategy.
It's actually, the speed run is then however long it takes you to say 100. And even then you can skip out the number 1, just say 100. Done. Nailed it. Half a second.
That is a good little trick there. So everybody, if you're wanting to speedrun counting, this is your advice. Finished. We hope you liked it.
Now on with the show.
To another show we like to do here at the weekends, or as you call it, Wednesday, is of course Boy Review, hosted by me, Hamish.
And me, Wilkie.
Wilkie, I feel like we do have to address the elephant in the room.
Yes, we do.
You know, we want to go our hearts and prayers out to the Connery family. Obviously, Sean Connery passed away this week, a good long-standing impression that you could do. And
famously an impression that I was capable of.
You might have been trying to do a different impression.
I may have misattributed it sometimes, but it's even with that knowledge in my mind, it's an impression I found myself going back to. He's a classic, and we miss him.
Sean Connery will make a show. The impression will make an appearance on our show, I'm sure, in the future. But
Sean, as much as we have made impressions of Sean Connery made an impression on us.
Didn't really know where I could go after this.
Yeah,
this is quite a downer to start a show on.
Yeah.
Well, Wilkie, have you had a good week? Otherwise, how was your weekend? Your this past week, your fake weekend. You know, we call Wednesday the weekend because that's when it actually happens. People want you to think the weekend happens Saturday and Sunday. That's not true.
It's all lies by the government to get you to. It's to distract you from the fact that birds aren't real. My weekend is good. My weekend is often filled with D&D. I have D&D on Saturdays. Saturday famously was Halloween. We had a sort of spooky session with the group that I used to play with in person until Coventry got put in tier 2, so we could no longer meet. So now we play online. We're keeping it together. It's good. Spooky Halloween session. Then on Sunday, of course, we have our D&D game with our friends from uni. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's exciting stuff.
Yeah,
there's a chess game happening. They stole the idea from us, I'm sure.
Yeah, they stole the idea of chess from this show.
Exactly. We came up with chess. Fact. We don't need to fact check that.
That's a Boy Review promise.
We invented chess. Right. So, Wilkie, we've got a few topics to get through this week.
We do. Famously three.
Some actual reviews as well. You know, we're actually reviewing proper things this week. Sometimes, you know, we come up with esoteric things. Last week I did Fear. In the past, when we were back doing radio, I remember I think we had picnics one time and all these other things. You know, these things you don't typically want to review.
Ambiguous words.
That
was a dark time. Look, I'm not going to lie. That was a dark time for Boy Review. So, like, sometimes it gets to 7 p.m. and you don't have a topic and you've just got to talk about ambiguous words for 20 minutes.
You know, sometimes I find it really fun to talk about something that just isn't a thing you would normally review.
Something you just can't talk about.
Something you can talk about. Ambiguous words was a difficult one to talk about because no one knows what the hell you're talking about because it's ambiguous. But I knew that when I started it, and that makes that point out why I had problems with ambiguous words. You know, it's about the art form. It was like interpretive podcasting. I make the audience feel the review. They don't just hear the review; they feel it in their soul.
That's fair. I'll give you that. If only just to move on.
This week, I get to go first, and I would like to talk about a TV show I've been watching called The Boys. It's on Amazon Prime. Now, before I get into this, I want to address a couple of quick serious things about The Boys. There are lots of reasons I really like this show, but also for many people, this will not be a show for them. Every episode begins with nearly a screen showing off nearly every single trigger warning that you can for TV. There's a lot of violence. There's excessive drug use. There's death in lots of different ways. There's sexual assault, or it's not seen on screen, but it's referenced. Very adult, very serious things that I think the show does deal with well, and that's why I would recommend it. But also, if these are things that aren't for you, then I would suggest The Boys. It will not be a show for you at all. But if these are things that you don't trigger you in any way, I think it's a show worth watching. Because it's a really, really well-made TV show. It's over on Amazon Prime. I think I've said this. The second season came out fairly recently. I feel like within this last year.
I think so, yeah.
It's got two seasons so far. So the premise of The Boys is based on a comic book series of the same name. I would say whether you like the show or not, apparently don't read it, because whilst the show deals with a lot of its difficult topics very, very well, apparently the comic book does not always do them in the best way. The show's done a good job about sort of keeping the good parts of the comic book but then fixing some of the not so good bits. But the premise of the show is superheroes are real. It's based on sort of our world, so there's lots of crossovers from what we know in our reality. But the main difference is superheroes are real, but it's not like the Avengers. It's not like the Justice League. These superheroes all work for one big giant organization called Vought, and it is very capitalist. You know, they don't save people necessarily just to save people. They save them to increase Vought shares and to make money. And also, all the superheroes do bad things. You know, one of the superheroes is a drug addict. Lots of them are just killers and we are willing to take a lot of collateral damage. You know, they are not just killers, murderers. Whereas, you know, other superheroes that kill, and like your Avengers and your Justice League, they feel bad about it. You know, they only hurt bad people. Yeah, they do a bunch of very awful, awful things.
Yeah, from what I've seen, I've watched I think most of the first season. The main way I would describe the superheroes of this world are that they are hypocrites. Because you've got this team that work for Vought called the Seven. They're like the Avengers, pretty much. They're actually one-for-one parallels with characters from Justice League.
Yes, they are.
Hypocrites is how I describe them. They have this like public-facing front where they're all very American. You've got the Superman parallel character called Homelander, very American, very Christian, very like Bible Belt. He is a character much appreciated by people living in the Bible Belt of America. And yet he's going around, you know, murdering people, and claiming to literally be the son of God, which is not allowed, I'm fairly sure.
Not allowed. It's not a good thing to do. And yeah, you have all the other things. So the boys, the characters of the show, the sort of the central team, are these group of people that come to sort of put superheroes back in their place. They they've all been wronged by superheroes at some point. The one that we are most aware of is sort of the main character of the show is Huey, just because he's the first person we're introduced to. There are lots of main characters. Minor spoilers for the opening, but it happens in like the first 10 minutes. And there's a lot of the trailers for the show. Right at the beginning, Huey is in a loving relationship with a woman called Robin, and then very on she is run through by a super fast superhero. So this A-Train is is like the Flash of the Seven. He is running somewhere super fast and runs through her, and as you would expect,
she is burst.
She is vaporized.
Yeah, that scene is a very good like, oh, that's how much blood there's going to be in this show. Wonderful.
Yes. So if you're not sure about it, that can be a good point to get to, just because that will set the limit. The one thing though about like the violence in the show is, one thing I'd give to it is it does a good job of like, there are these moments where it's like very visceral, but it doesn't dwell on it for too long. I say there are only one or two moments or instances where it's made me feel actively uncomfortable by what I'm watching. It's very good about giving you the feeling and then going to the next thing, because they know it's not quite for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, also very much the point of The Boys is that like these superheroes, they enjoy being superheroes because it gives them this feel like the literal power and this like feeling of power. They can do things to people and get away with it. Yeah. So the fact that the show doesn't glorify the violence that they commit is very much part of the point they're trying to make. It's like,
yeah,
sometimes the good guys have to do acts of violence to the superheroes that they're fighting back against, but the good guys don't enjoy it. The boys don't enjoy being violent. Sometimes there's like this like rush that they get, like obviously like you get like adrenaline from like having to deal with a violent situation, but they never, stand and like laugh about it like you sometimes see the superheroes doing.
And then the few things I want to get into though, like why I really find this show funny, is it does a lot of funny things with the reality of superheroes. I think it has some of these really funny elements. The main leader of the boys is a guy called Billy Butcher. He has some of the best lines. He's very British, and he has, obviously the writers have done a really good job about sticking to that. He throws out so many of these British lines and sort of like things that I've heard my dad say, sort of like a cup of cha, he says in the second season. It's like, okay, that's quite funny.
Played by a very wonderfully bearded Carl Urban.
Yeah, Carl Urban is very, very good as Billy Butcher. And there are some funny sides to the darker thing. One thing that I just thought was hilarious as a scene is in one of the earlier episodes, you go to like this superhero club. So this is one of the few places where the superheroes can be who they are. And you see this Ant-Man style character, and the fact that he's shrunk down and he's just running across this table. And it's a good like 30 seconds of watching this small person run across a table. And you think, what's the build up here? And then he dives forwards, and you see that he seems to dive into a woman is sat with her leg facing the camera, and he dives into her crotch area, and it's a very funny scene because it's like this sort of build up of like what's going on? Is he gonna dive into like some alcohol?
That'd be fun.
Or something, and it's just like, okay, that's a funny one. And then there was quite the funny sort of like fake sex of TV, because she just instantly moans, and you go, well, I don't feel like that would be your reaction if this small man dives at you like a bullet.
She's maybe humouring him because he thought that would be a good idea, and he's a superhero. So you wanna humour him. Yeah, there's what was I gonna say? If I could shrink down like Ant-Man, I think what I would do is I'd eat food. I'd lay out some of my favorite foods, and then I'd shrink down and I'd eat it, but there'd be way more of it. I think that's what I'd do.
I think that would work. That sounds like it would work.
Yeah, like make up like some fried rice, but then I can eat it like one grain of rice at a time.
Just really inefficiently.
Well, no, because like I shrink down grain of rice.
Very efficiently, I guess. Very efficiently.
Grain of rice looks like this in my hand. I eat it like a massive sandwich.
My other favourite long-running gag in the show focuses on probably one of the more despicable members of the Seven, the Deep. Very early on, they set up that he's a sex offender, and they do a very good job about dealing with that, and they they show off just how pathetic he is. And my favourite on-running gag with him, though, is that he's based on Aquaman. He can talk to fish and sea creatures, and every single time he tries to save a sea creature, it goes wrong. I won't talk about all the ways because I think it's funny to watch them, but it's so good knowing how awful a human being he is, just seeing every single thing he tries to do that he tries to do for himself just goes horribly wrong. Like, he's just so incapable.
Yeah, like he complains that because it's sort of like the Aquaman meme, like he complains that he is reduced to, the one that talks to animals, but then even the thing that apparently is his only skill, he also sucks at.
So it's things like that where it has these despicable people. It knows to make fun of them. It has all of the Seven have their problems in various degrees. At least some of the bad members of Seven. There are some okay superheroes in the world, and I think that provides a bit of balance. But the ones that are evil in their own ways, they really show just how pathetic. That's the word I'm looking for. Pathetic they are, and I think that's a really awesome thing about The Boys as a show. It deals with these difficult issues, but it does them in a good way, and it's a good show. I really enjoy watching it. They know how to keep the action up. They know how to keep the story going. You get really invested in it. I've been watching it with Izzy. We and I have both been loving it. We just spent like the whole past 2 weekends trying to get through all of season 1 and then all of season 2. And I think it's one that's really worth watching if you enjoy superhero films and you're okay with some of these. You're okay with sort of these things won't trigger you in any way. Then yeah, give The Boys a go. I'd highly recommend it. I give it a good.
There we go.
I don't think there's anything The Boys could do better.
Wunderbar.
So yeah, that is that from me. And Wookie, I feel like it is time for your topic.
Great. Now, Hamish, imagine it's the before times. There's this man counting upwards in the street, and you just decide not to bother. So you go to a pub to have I don't know, maybe you're meeting some mates at the pub. That was why you were outside in the first place.
Okay, I order a gin and tonic.
Oh, fancy. Yeah, you sit down at a table. And then suddenly the door swings open and the music cuts out and everyone turns to look.
I took a sip of my G&T.
Ooh, wonderful. Are you drinking actual G&T right now?
No, it's a glass of water.
Oh, okay.
I was trying to do the Foley.
Yeah.
I feel like it's
Foley.
liquid.
Yeah.
Yeah, good Foley.
Right. And in the background, I don't know if Hamish, you can actually put this in the show, but there's like a woo woo.
I do this too with Izzy. I've been so excited about this. I just going dun daka 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 dun.
It's so good. And I'm standing in the doorway. It's me, and I'm wearing shiny silver armor. I've got a cool helmet on, and I'm the Mandalorian.
You sort of step forwards. Who's going to be your Baby Yoda? Is it Malik's in a little cot?
I was
just painted himself green.
I was going to suggest Jade be Baby Yoda, and then Malik's can be famously my nemesis Moff Gideon.
His enters.
Yes. I was debating. Do I want to keep this spoiler free? Do I want to do spoilers for season 1? I'll do this. I'll try and keep it spoiler free. There may be names that I mention, but I won't mention. Like, I'll try to avoid mentioning when they turn up or why they're there.
Yes.
So, The Mandalorian.
Yes.
The Mandalorian is brilliant. It's the best Star Wars. One of the best Star Wars.
War isn't ever a good thing, but
no.
The Mandalorian Star War is good.
Star Wars as a franchise has gone up and down recently. But this year's a good year for Star Wars, right? Because recently I finished watching the Clone Wars. My housemate Alex made us watch all of the Clone Wars, including season 7, which came out this year. Incredible stuff. Loved it all.
Yes.
Goes up. It just goes upwards. It keeps improving. Season 7 was incredible. The final couple of episodes, powerful stuff. And
it made me want to go back and rewatch episode 3 and 2 and 1.
Yes. From the Clone Wars, which is obviously taking place during the Clone Wars, between films 2 and 3. The Mandalorian takes place after film 6, after the second Death Star has been destroyed, after the fall of the Empire. And it's very interesting. It's commented on by a couple of characters, like, look, the Empire, some characters who are sympathizers of the Empire, look at the world outside, everyone's fighting, it's chaos. At least the Empire brought order. But then we see that the Empire are perhaps still the bad guys. There are still some Imperials, people call them imps. There are still some Imperials who are around. They can't just get decommissioned like battle droids could. These are human beings, and some people obviously still sympathizers of the Imperials. But we have this character, the Mandalorian, the first time we're introduced to them is so cool. Okay, so spoilers for like the first 60 seconds of The Mandalorian. He enters a cantina exactly the way I just described. There's this like brilliant, like it's some sort of flute. It's this incredible spaghetti western vibes. Like he's got like a blaster on his hip. He doesn't talk to anyone. He's so cool, and I'm in love. It's an incredible series. It's so deep. The references and stuff, they're not just little callbacks, little references to things that aren't really important. It's such a deeply researched and prepared piece. It's so deep. I love it.
Because I also really like The Mandalorian. I think it is so. It's a brilliant show. I think you've captured it in sort of the spaghetti western vibe it sets in that opening scene, and that's how it continues. Pretty much, it's a western show. It's a western. Like it does a great job of drawing on some of those tropes, but obviously bringing them into the Star Wars universe. It goes to locations that we are familiar with from other Star Wars shows. It goes to locations that we are unfamiliar with, or goes to different parts of the places that we are familiar with, and that's something that's quite fun about The Mandalorian. Because I think I've said this when we've just been chatting at various points. I think I said this when I saw you the other day, Wilkie, where I said that one of my main issues with Star Wars is that it, particularly with the films at least, is that it always goes like so wide, but only like an inch deep.
Yeah.
So it introduces all these really cool elements that we'd love to explore.
But you only see them once. Yeah.
That's why the Clone Wars, I think, is such a great TV show, because you get to explore lots of these things you see in the prequel trilogy that are really fun. Yeah. And they go in depth into it more. Something
I wanted to talk about regarding The Mandalorian was how cool The Mandalorian is as a character. So in a lot of modern films, modern content media, when you've got your male protagonist, their first instinct is to like go it alone. They're like, nah, I work alone. I don't accept help. And sort of maybe the point of the content is that they struggle without help, and then they finally have to give in and accept assistance, and then they win. But watching...
The prize was the friends we made along the way kind of vibe.
Yeah. Watching Mando do his job, going around literally just like off the bat accepting any help he's offered. There's a really fun character you meet in the first episode, I think. This just a guy living on a planet offers to help Mando. Mando's like, brilliant, thank you. And then when the two part ways, he's like, look, you're great. Can I offer you a job? The guy says, no thanks. Well, can I at least give you a cut of what I'm being paid? No, I don't want it. Well, then all I can offer you is my thanks. And it's this brilliant, like, of course he would accept help because he has a difficult job. And if someone, yeah. if this local of this planet he's gone to is offering to help him, of course he accepts.
And the person he spoke to, I forget what their name is. There are a couple of lines from the show that are easily repeatable. It's like, this is the way.
This is the way. The creed of the Mandalorians. This is the way. They follow this like old creed, yeah.
And then the guy that Mando meets in the first episode has I have spoken.
I have spoken.
He just like it's like, yes, this is how it is. Yeah. I've said it. Move on.
Yeah, he's like, I won't accept any payment. I've spoken. And Mando's like, cool. Then okay. Thank you.
No convincing this guy.
Yeah. There are like you said, there are places we go to that are familiar, places we go to that aren't familiar. One place that we go to is Tatooine. We return to Tatooine and we meet some Tusken Raiders, the Sand People that we first met in episode 4. And this is something that I think also comes from sort of some of the more progressive spaghetti western genre films, is that Mando works with the Sand People. He is actually able to speak with them. There's some sort of universal sign language that they share, and when he is approached by a group of them, his companion is like sort of has his hand on his hip, like looking to Mando, like, are we going to kill these guys? And Mando pays them, and he's like, this is their land. And the sort of parallels between, like, obviously Native Americans terribly treated throughout a lot of history, but there is an obvious parallel between like the gunslinger, the man with no name, the Western protagonist character, and then the people who are native to this place, who that character either works with or works against. And Mando is very much on the working with them side. Wherever he goes, he works alongside the local people. There's an episode that follows, to a certain extent, the plot of Seven Samurai. So he trains up, he assists in a village defending themselves against local threats. And he's very much this like very modern, unproblematic character.
The Mandalorian has a lot of honor. You know, he saves Baby Yoda rather than wiping him out or them out. I guess you reminded me when I talked about Baby Yoda before. We don't actually know.
Oh, actually, upon actually watching the show, at least yes, Baby Yoda's physical sex is confirmed to be male. Not visually, but a doctor says he when referring to Baby Yoda. So I'm going to trust the doctor at least until Baby Yoda tells me otherwise. Okay,
well, and Baby Yoda does provide this great sort of other look at the show. You know, as much like I mentioned in The Boys, like where they have all of these very dark, serious moments, and they'll have these moments of comedy. These lines that the various characters say. Baby Yoda is very much that for the Mandalorian. I think it works so well because it means that
Baby Yoda's the best.
You don't suddenly have this cool character giving some weird pun or quip. That you just have this baby.
It is cooing because we watch with subtitles on because it's easier for me to hear when there's subtitles on, if that makes sense.
I get it. You know what you're listening for.
Yeah, all of the subtitles are always like the child coos, the child gurgles, child laughs gleefully or something, and it's always just...
It's like it puts so much stuff in its mouth.
Yeah, and it like steals bits of Mando's ship. It's so cute.
It just tries to hit every time you're in Mando's ship. It tries to hit a button. It doesn't care what that button does. Yeah. It just wants to press things.
I was saying that I think Mando should have a little panel of buttons installed on the ship that do nothing, but just so the child can just poke them and turn. Yeah. Although I feel like part of the fun is like getting Mando's attention, like turns on the self-destruct. No, stop that.
and we've talked about a few Star Wars things already. Like we've talked about the Clone Wars and we've talked about the Mandalorian and the films. I'd say I think Wilkie kind of said this before, like this is one of the best pieces of Star Wars content. I'd say two things that make it great. Firstly, at least at the moment, what I've seen, you don't really have to have seen much else of Star Wars. I think I think having a basic knowledge probably will help, but overall it's just generally decent.
Yeah, whenever there are little things that sort of are based on the history of Star Wars, they're always explained by someone in universe because it makes sense.
Yeah. And, you know, this season, I think there are rumours that some characters from the wider universe are coming in. You've got Ahsoka Tano, who was like the protagonist of the Clone Wars, or at least for most of it when she was there. So perhaps watching some of those shows would be worth it. I'd definitely say the Clone Wars, at least there are a tailored version of the Clone Wars. If you want to skip some episodes, you can find
some towards the beginning are skippable, yeah, but it gets into it. The Clone Wars is quite heavy in places. There's a lot of times where we would sort of look at each other while watching it and just like, this is a kids show. This is for children, and that is a war crime. Lots of war crimes in Clone Wars. I think what's your favourite Clone Wars war crime? Your Clone War crime. What's your favourite Clone War crime, Hambo? I think mine is the at least 3 different counts of perfidy. Do you know what perfidy is?
Is that when they say they surrender and then they kill the people anyway?
Yep, it's pretending to surrender.
There is a lot of that. There is so much of that from the Jedi. Obi-Wan Kenobi does it at least 4 times in that show. I swear to God. It's his strategy.
Obi-Wan does it a few times, pretending to surrender, and then because the Geneva Conventions essentially say you have to accept. Well, you don't have to. Yeah, you pretty much have to accept surrender, which then puts you in a weak position because you're not expecting the person to attack. So if you take advantage of someone who's accepted your surrender, that's perfidy, and that's a war crime.
I'm trying to think. I don't like it when they kill the big monster, the Trillo Beast,
the Zillo Beast.
The Zillo Beast.
Yeah, just leave it be.
Leave monster be. It wasn't doing anything bad.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
they kidnapped it.
Under
It's living its life.
Under whose orders? Who?
Emperor.
Yeah, Chancellor Palpatine. There. I will make the Zillo Beast into armor for the clones. Totally not like to destabilize the peace on Coruscant.
No. Well, anyway, we weren't talking about the Clone Wars, we were talking about the Mandalorian. We'll probably have to talk about the Clone Wars at some point.
Love the Mandalorian.
I love that show as well.
Speaking of how unproblematic Mando is, the cast, fairly solid, right? In terms of there being like female characters who aren't sexualized, in terms of there being characters of colour, played by actors of colour. It's all good stuff. The main character, played by a person of colour, though you don't really see his face very often, Pedro Pascal. He's very good. Although, famously, Pedro Pascal, who plays the Mandalorian, does not appear in episode 4 of The Mandalorian.
Is it just his body double?
There's doubles and his voice, yes. Because it's heavy armour. The armour is fairly heavy. It's all practical. There's one moment that sticks out for me, which is Mando and a female accomplice of his are on his ship, the Razor Crest, and suddenly it like starts to like wobble and like go out of control, and the two are like flung around the ship a bit before they can get onto like a ladder and go into the control room to find the child just wobbling one of the controls, plausibly just to get their attention. Modern films have conditioned me to expect one of those like lurches of the ship to send one of the characters like pinned up against the other character against a wall, and for there to be a moment there. I was like, oh, come on, really? No. And it didn't happen. They just like, that just didn't happen. And I was like, oh, nice. And
no need to make it awkward here.
And there's a moment where a character sort of becomes attracted to Mando because he's cool and helpful, and there's often a sort of like when you get like the main character who has this whirlwind romance, usually like I'm picturing like a James Bond and the Bond girl idea of like swoops in, like saves the day, kisses the girl and leaves. He just says like, no, I have to go. I can't do that. Like I won't even. He doesn't say this out loud, but like the idea is like, I'm not even gonna hurt you by suggesting it's possible. I can't stay, and he's so cool.
Yeah, I think it's hard to find fault with this show.
Absolutely. That is why I'm going to give it a good.
A well-deserved good.
Well-deserved good. I'm very irritated that now I have to wait a week for the next episode, because it's been very fun watching the Clone Wars and having Alex be like, you think that's a cliffhanger? I had to wait a week for the next episode. And then now I'm in the position of I have to wait a week for the next episode and I'm invested.
Well, speaking of that kind of feeling, Wilkie, we've got our final topic of the week. And I thought, we did a couple of TV episodes, and you talk about, having to watch them all in one go or watch them every week. Binge watching. Obviously, I think binge watching has kind of become this thing in the Netflix era, because obviously that was Netflix's thing when it's first started picking up with big, huge TV shows. It would drop all of the episodes in a go. And obviously, if you watched a TV box set or any of these other on DVD or now on digital, you could watch everything just in a oneer. You finish with an episode, you can get on to the next thing. But obviously, classic TV, and now we're sort of seeing it come back with certain TV shows. I don't know if The Boys did it. I feel like it might have done when it came out, but obviously, The Mandalorian is currently coming out. It's just one a week.
It's painful. It's so painful.
Really, you don't like the one a week thing?
I mean, obviously, as with many things that are enjoyable, there is a benefit to pacing yourself. But with the way that media is consumed these days, because of the media I've chosen to consume, I haven't often ended up having to wait for things. Like I've been watching shows that are already all out and have finished, like watching Community. I spent a lot of the early lockdown watching Community this year. Watching shows like Parks and Rec, The Office. Being able to binge watch those has spoiled me for shows that come out once a week. But also, it's like, I hate, it's the way that you hate a cliffhanger. You're like, oh no, come on! I want to watch the next episode of The Mandalorian because I can't wait to see what that guy gets up to next. But of course, there is a good side to having to wait, because I pace myself out. I don't watch everything in one go and then have nothing left to watch. I get to focus for... I think the episodes are now an hour long, which is very exciting. Just focus for an hour. Really focus really hard, pay attention to all the little details, and then I can, go away and ruminate on it rather than blasting through everything and sort of... I feel like when I binge watch, I stop paying attention because all I want to do is get to the next episode. I stop caring about what's happening now. Binge watching, the goal is to finish, but watching weekly, the goal is to enjoy. And there's benefits. I can't remember. I'm saying benefits. I mean a different word. There's upsides and downsides to both of those.
Advantages?
Plausibly, yeah. There's advantages to both of those. I'm
really with you there because I think that for me, I think it depends on the show. With The Mandalorian particularly, I'm very glad that it's week one a week because I feel like it'd be one of those sorts of shows where there's often, particularly nearer the end of the season, and particularly end of the first Mandalorian season, there are a couple of fairly big reveals, and that I think it'd be way too easy if it was a binge watch show, all, let's say 8 episodes. I can't remember how many, but it's normally about 8.
Yeah, there's 8 and they're all half an hour long.
All 8 episodes are dropped. Some people will have 4 hours to sit and watch it all in a go, and then they'll report on it all, and you'll see spoilers start popping up. And, some people just won't have 4 hours of time. There'll be other things they want to get on with. Everyone has other interests, and they don't want to just drop everything to watch The Mandalorian. So I like that it's just one a week. I can focus on it, as you said. I can really savor it in the moment. I can get excited for what I'm going to see next week. But also, if maybe I haven't quite seen everything this episode yet, I only finished watching the episode yesterday, and it came out on Friday. So that's a few days. There's only so much that can be spoilt for me. I'm able to sort of dodge things a little bit more easily because it's not for as long a period of time as, say, if I had to watch 8 episodes.
Yeah. Hang on. Have you watched the most recent one? Yeah.
Yes, I'm now all caught up.
Okay. If you don't want spoilers for Mandalorian season 2, close your ears for just a moment. Tamara Morrison, man. He's there, but who is he? Is he Boba Fett? Is he Rex? Who is he?
Somebody.
It's so exciting.
Probably Boba Fett.
But he could be Rex, though. What if he's Rex?
No beard. You'd have to have the beard.
He could have shaved.
I like Rex with the beard. I will say, if we're going to see Rex, it might be with Ahsoka. Though, actually, that would make sense, because Ahsoka's meant to be in this season, as I said.
Okay.
There's the connection there. Anyway.
You can start listening now again.
But yeah, and so that's really awesome. And then the boys, I enjoyed binge watching it. I did enjoy getting to the next thing. It meant I could just keep going with it. Particularly last week when we got to just get through all of season 1 in a go. It was like, oh, what's gonna happen next? Like, we did manage to savor it, and because it was already all finished, it was like, oh, I can just power through this, and this is what's enjoyable about it. But I think obviously now it's like pre it already being all hyped up. That's great. You can just get through it all. Whereas there's something fun about Mandalorian. It's like it's all everyone can think about, from like the marketer in me, like they're wanting to produce something and be like, yeah, let's get excited for this.
Yeah,
it's sort of like
that week really gives people time to mull over things, to come up with like more extensive theories, to have more of a reason to watch it the next week. Whereas, yeah, the reason to binge watch something is to tick it off your list, I think. And like there were times watching the Clone Wars when I was like, I'm not really watching. I just know that I have to technically have watched the Clone Wars at some point. Obviously, there were bits of it that caught me, and I was like, oh, damn. But there were some episodes where I zoned out because I knew I didn't really have to focus.
Yeah, it was just sort of like, there were some, I think, because I talked about how there are lots of sort of watch guides for the Clone Wars, because firstly, it fixes the timeline because they're not in chronological order at first. So it tells you, okay, watch these. If you're in this order, it'll make the most sense. But then there are some where it's like, okay, you can now, it tells you which episodes you can skip, which aren't sort of necessary to the plot. So it's like, oh, this one is sort of like a Jar Jar episode. It's not really worth watching. It was like, oh, this droid squad, really fun, and actually does kind of it is kind of important in the future, maybe a little bit, but you can just maybe skip over that if you're not sure about it. And there are some, it's like, oh, there's one key detail in the middle of this arc, so it's worth watching all 3 episodes.
Yeah.
But yeah, like some of them you're just like, oh, I don't really want to, so I'm just going to have it as background noise. And it's like, oh, cool, Jedi fight scene. Great. Some interesting politics. I'll go for that.
I remember a friend of mine was watching Star Trek The Next Generation, but with a skip list, and they were only watching about 3 episodes from each season. Pretty much like, well, because so much of it is just like procedural, like Monster of the Week style, like, oh, they deal with a problem and then there's sort of, you know, the way at the end of every Simpsons episode, whatever problem there was is solved and we're back to square one. So most Simpsons episodes will make sense following most other Simpsons episodes.
Yeah.
It's the same. Like, most TNG episodes can follow most others, because it's the Enterprise and it deals with a problem, and then they move on and they go on to the next mission at the end of the episode. And it's really only, like, again, like towards the beginning, there's less like plot relevant stuff. You really only have to watch the ones that come back to haunt you later, like the ones that introduce Q, or the one where, you know, the beginning and the end of each season, because that's where the 2-parters come in, they get referenced. And I didn't like that. I was like, oh, but you see, this thing says that, like, Darmok is skippable because it's not plot relevant. And how can you skip Darmok? It's the best episode of the whole show. It's so good.
That's true. I think I need to. I think that's one of those things. And I guess with some of these other shows, like The Boys, some of these, I don't know. It's not quite a mini series, but it's 8 episodes. Whereas, you know, some Clone Wars series are like 15.
Yeah, or like 22 episodes per season, but they're a bit shorter.
Yeah, but it feels a bit more manageable to just watch all 8 of something, particularly because, like, I think the other thing that I think is quite good about shows which are designed to come out weekly or don't just be like, oh, you can just binge watch this, so we'll just make it as it is every episode feels important. You know, every episode of The Mandalorian, something pretty cool happens. It really develops the characters and it develops the plot, at least in a small minor way, that it leaves with some kind of cliffhanger or something that is going to come back either in just the next episode or in a few episodes' time. With The Boys, it's exactly the same. You know, this thing that you've been learning about now, that might not get developed in the next episode, but you're going to learn stuff about the characters later on, and over the arc you can start to work out these things. And it's really cool sort of piecing the mystery together. You know, in season 2 of The Boys, there's this new superhero, and it's fun trying to work out who she is, sort of like, what's her deal? Because like, she seems kind of cool at first, but there's these little flakes, and as the season goes on, it's fun to build it up. And I feel like if you're not designing a show to be binge watched, you kind of make every episode worth watching, because like it's like, you know, The Mandalorian, this is the only episode we're getting this week, so it has to be a good one.
Yeah, and sort of you look at it and you think, well, it doesn't really tie into like the main plot that we're thinking of following season 1. But yeah, it's an hour long. This is becoming like a big series. There's only 1 episode a week. I don't yet know what's relevant, but something that happened in this episode, a lot of the things that happened in this episode must be important in the future.
Yeah, whereas like in a binge watch episode, it's like, oh, well, someone will probably watch 1 or 2 episodes, maybe 2 or 3 episodes in a sitting, at least.
Or, you know, we'll just chuck a clip show in this week, or we'll chuck a beach episode in because we just need to put an episode out because we're padding out this massive season. But yeah, these sort of shorter, yeah. So
like 4 might be... But like episode 4 like doesn't need any important beats because they'll watch episode 2 and episode 5. Oh, episode 3 and episode 5. So like 4 will be useful, but it won't necessarily have these cool cliffhangers that'll keep them coming back because they're already invested because of these other reasons. Whereas the shows that you can't just binge watch, they do have to keep it hooked, and I think that's so much fun. It's also great just to watch it properly every week because then you play all the theme song. When you're binge watching a show, that theme song like for the 15th or 8th time can get annoying. But, I can tell you what the Mandalorian theme song is. I don't know if The Boys has a theme song. I don't know if it actually does in general, but like if it does have one, I couldn't tell you what it is.
No, they've usually got like a song at the beginning of the episode, and then there's like The Boys like title card, but that's usually on top of whatever's already going on.
But like, trying to think of another show, like a Netflix show. I can actually think of a few Netflix shows that I know the theme song of, just because I was trying to think of like Orange is the New Black or Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt.
I know the theme tune to Star Trek The Next Generation, but I always skipped it because it's like a full minute long, and it gets really irritating after a while.
Yeah, but I like it's just like it's always fun to have that little build up of the intro at the beginning of Mandalorian, and you don't necessarily get that if you were to binge watch it. It's like, oh, I've heard this 15 times. It's
so cool.
It is cool, and yeah. But binge watching I think does have its uses, though I guess it's like a group rating. So I'm feeling it's like a bad good. There are some fun reasons to binge watch something. It's good to get to enjoy something, but I do quite like the episodic nature of some of these shows. I quite enjoy having to just watch one a week. Where do you sit on binge watching, Wilkie?
Like I said, I enjoy binge watching, right? It's fun, but it's a very different kind of fun. I enjoy binge watching something when I actually want to do something else. Like, you'll sit down and you'll put on some sort of binge watchable show for like you and your significant other, and what you're really doing is sitting there like chatting, like you want something to then be distracted from. Like, I'll put on a show I can binge watch while I actually want to do writing, because I told one of my creative writing masters tutors about this, and they were shocked, because I can't write solidly for a long period of time. I'll get distracted and I'll end up not doing the writing. So what I do is I do something else, and then I let the writing distract me from the first thing.
That's quite clever.
And then when like my focus runs out, I can go and just lose focus watching the thing again and come back to the writing when my brain has an idea, because my brain isn't doing any work watching the binge watching show because I don't got to think about it. But
it's brain candy effectively is what I think.
You just need something to distract you, and that's what binge watching is. Unless you're specifically like blasting your way through a show in order to pick up
as
all
like the activity.
Yeah, in order to like pick up on the details, but that's not binge watching. I wouldn't call that binge watching because binging is like a mindless, repetitive act, whereas like
that's actually interesting.
Because like that's what binge eating and binge drinking are. It's like you just
I hadn't
do it without thinking and without
like
planning.
That.
But if you're like, okay, I have to finish season 1 of The Mandalorian, and I've got 4 days to do it, and I'm going to watch 2 episodes a day, and I'm going to do it at this time, and I'm going to pay attention. Like that's not binge watching. That's
enjoying a show, but just watching it quickly.
Yeah.
Because I'd have called What Is United with the Boys binge watching, but actually it's sort of by your definition, which I quite like a lot, is, we were just enjoying The Boys, and rather than watching, say, having a film night, we had a TV night and we just watched, 4 or 5 episodes.
Yeah, and if you watch the next episode because you're excited for it, that's not binge watching, that's, enjoying a show.
Whereas binge watching is sort of just trying to get through not get through something, sort of just having it on, enjoying it, sort of like background noise.
You can be watching and paying attention, but there's a disconnect, I think.
Yeah, you're just overindulging.
Whether or not you care might be the actual difference. This is really interesting. I think it's sort of different for everyone. Like, there's a blanket like, oh, that's binge watching, but then really, are you binging on it, or are you just watching a lot of it and enjoying it? It's
like, I guess from the drinking aspect. Are you just trying to get hammered, or are you sitting there? Are you savouring what you're drinking? Are you enjoying it? You might still drink quite a bit that evening. Obviously, everyone should drink in moderation, but you might get through a whole bottle of wine, but you're enjoying it. You're savouring every flavour and every taste, rather than just trying to get smashed.
Yeah, drinking to get drunk is binge drinking. But like, if you're having fun at a party, playing some sort of like drinking game, you might get equally as drunk, but you're having fun. You're doing it because you're enjoying the game.
Well, that was a really good idea. I might need to rethink my rating. I still feel like it's a bad good though. I feel like it's not my preferred way of going through TV, but each their own. I think it's a way to enjoy content, and you've talked about all these useful elements with your writing that it gives you, and so I can see binge watching is a good thing.
Yeah, it's
underlying.
I would agree. Bad good. That it is. As far as activities that are either enjoyable or not go, it's enjoyable. It's not the most stimulating or nourishing, but it's bad good. I'd give it.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I feel like that is the whole episode. But it's all been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed this little TV-focused episode. Hope you all have at home as well. So thank you so much for listening. If you're on a podcast service, give us a like, give us a 5 stars, give us really whatever it can. Give us a review, anything. It really helps us. And also, absolutely, please share us with your friends and your family. If you know somebody that you think might enjoy this style of comedy or show, it will really help us grow. We're currently sat on like a good 25 regular-ish listeners. And so that's really, really awesome. But we'd love to get more people coming in and enjoying the show. And really the only way that's going to happen is if you guys can put us out there into the world. It's very hard to sort of like do any search engine optimization, to use a technical term, on podcast episodes. You just push them out and it says, here you go. If you're not Joe Rogan or insert other famous podcast here, the McElroy brothers or somebody else, the podcast services aren't really going to recommend you. You have to get popular. And we enjoy doing this show.
Speaking of reaching out into the world, Hamish, I've managed to go a full episode without inventing a stupid new hashtag.
But Wilkie, if people did want to reach out to you with one of your stupid hashtags, they wouldn't just use that stupid hashtag boy review no hashtag.
You could maybe so tweet at us with so our main social media is our Instagram at boy review. That's where we post a lot of things. That's where we will most likely be able to accept messages if you want to get in contact with us. Instagram at boy review is the place to go. But I do also keep track of Twitter hashtags because I know that obviously you might not want to post an entire photograph on your Instagram just to sort of make a point about the show. So I have hashtag boy review tracked on my tweet deck. If you would like to perhaps tweet with the hashtag boy review TV, tell us what you're watching at the moment. Tell us if you're watching The Mandalorian, if you're watching The Boys, if you have been inspired by us to watch either of those. Do reach out. Please do also use the regular boy review hashtag and then boy review TV so I know what it's about.
And speaking of our Instagram page, sometimes we do little competitions. Sometimes we do like little things so you can get into our good gang. We'll give you a little shout out on the show and we'll give a friend a shout out on the show, so it's worth watching. We don't have them all the time, but sometimes we do.
Trying to keep this marble slab a little bit exclusive.
Yeah, but other than that, I think that is everything. Be on the lookout for some exciting new stuff, always from Boy Review, because we're always breaking the boundary.
Yeah.
When you listen to the podcast, there's going to be some kind of new effect where you actually hear like a director's commentary at sometime in the future.
We should do director's commentary for one of our podcasts. Yeah.
The writers told us to say this thing, but we did a little bit of our improv and we said this other thing.
Also, Hamish, speaking of forgetting things, is 11 not a prime number?
11 is a prime number, Wilkie.
We forgot to do prime time.
Should we do a quick little prime time?
Maybe, Hamish, what if that's it? We were so distracted talking to each other about the things that we love that we stopped caring about whether we were doing it right or wrong. We were in the moment, just you and me, two boys, talking about the boys, talking about the Mandalorian.
Well, we had set ourselves a goal of reaching a certain milestone, but I think maybe we're just confident again.
This could be a sign.
We were worried. We came back to this after having done it as a radio show, but it was so long ago that we did that. It was like half a year, if not slightly longer. And we were underconfident. But now we've got back into the swing of things.
We thought we had to interrogate our own performance, but now we've come into our own.
We're just living.
We're just living. And with that, I would like to thank you all for listening this week. It's been a pleasure having you here with us for this roughly hour-long podcast. It's goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Tweet #BoyReviewWholesome for that wholesome moment.